everybody. I hope that you're all doing well. This is the Rankadvertiser podcast. I'm here today with Beth. We're going to be talking about US election today. I hope you all are excited. Welcome to the podcast. Good morning, everybody. This is Glory. I'm so excited to have you all here. Today, we're talking about the election in the United States. I have my guest here, Beth. And let me tell you a little bit about Beth. Beth, she is a 20 years old veteran of marketing and advertising whose specialty was helping small business significantly increase their net value. She's also a retired entrepreneur as of 2011, which she loved doing while partnered with her mother. An independent entrepreneur for the last 50 years, Beth has dedicated her life to helping others succeed by building global networks of consumers online. She currently leads a team of over 19,000 people in 7 countries. She is very passionate about teaching anyone willing to do the work how to master a way of leverage a little bit of work from network of people in order to make the dreams come true. That is why the company is called Citizenship. She is also a passionate advocate for preventive health care strategy, national spokeswoman for Women's Heart, the only national advocacy organization for women with heart disease, an active Rotarian and past president of her Rotary Club, an ambassador for the National Cancer Coalition, and an athlete addicted to tennis and her Peloton bike. She believes everything in her life has led her to this place, and she is on a mission to support as many people as possible to have the type of success she enjoyed. She's been happily married for 35 years to her childhood sweetheart, Dave. She has 2 wonderful grandchildren, Erica, who is 27, and engaged to be married in September 2021, and currently live and work in Northern California. And Kyle, who is 25, and live with the love of his life and work in Southern California. I hope you all are excited because soon we are going to invite Beth here with us to talk about the election. Good morning, Beth. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm wonderful. Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to ask, how do you feel about the U.S. election?
I can't hear you very well with the music. Gloria, can we turn the music down just a bit?
Yes. I was actually asking, how do you feel about the U.S. election? It's finally here.
Oh, I feel relieved.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still not able to hear you very well with the music so high. Ah, there we go. Thank you. Oh, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love the music. It's so fun to rock out to, but I want to make sure I hear your questions. So thank you. Honestly, it's going to be an interesting balance because, there were 70 million people in our country that believed that voting for our current president was what they believed was what they were called to do. And yet there were 75 million people in the United States who made the decision that they were ready for change. And so I think, at this point, it's going to really come down to how do we all come back together?
Exactly.
Because I mean, I'm sure there are people that would argue that what we have had is a president who seemed to be, based on his behaviors and based on the things that he would tweet in the middle of the night, that seemed more interested in division than in unity.
Exactly.
So I'm looking forward to more unity than division in the months and years to come.
Same here. I was actually excited once I heard that Biden won, and that shows all of us that democracy is still alive, that you can still win despite the leadership. The peoples can still have their way to choose their candidates. At some point, I remember being afraid that they're going to stop counting because the president was requesting for it. So in those moments of as people were counting, I remember it did over 4 days. How were you feeling? Were you worried, or were you just like patient? You knew that the system would count every single ballot.
Yeah, so great question, because I think it's one that's definitely on lots of people's mind, right? Like, what did we believe? How did we feel? How did we respond to so much uncertainty? Particularly when we'd been dealing with, frankly, so much uncertainty for so long, especially when COVID hit. So yeah, my reaction was being anxious, not sleeping as well as I normally do through the night, and waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning and checking to see if there were any additional states that had been called. But at the same time, there was some anxiety for sure, but it was much more about continuing to believe, like you said, that democracy eventually is going to win. Yeah, and that's really what happened, and will continue to. So I can't. My mother, who's going to be 80 in December, she was very nervous because she was really hopeful that in her lifetime there would be a female president, and that's what she had hoped was going to happen with Hillary Clinton. And then when that didn't, her comment was, I really felt like I would live the rest of my life and know that at least, at one point a female would run our country. So even though it's not that right now with Kamala Harris, at least we're in a position where a woman of color, especially, is in the second highest office in our country. And that says a lot about our democracy as well.
Exactly. Let's talk about that. Yeah. I remember championing. Talking to my friend. I'm like, this is the best thing that can happen to the U.S. We really need to support women leadership, especially in government. Last 4 years it didn't happen. Let's vote for this ticket, because that will also be a way of writing history for our women. And how was you feeling once you heard that she got elected as the vice president? How did you feel?
It was just thrilling. I mean, really just so thrilling. And not just because it's a female, and not just because it's a female of color, but because it's this female of color. I mean, when you look into her history and how she's conducted her life and how she's conducted the decisions that she's made in some very powerful positions all along in her political career, she's the right woman at the right time to be in that position. And I'll tell you, watching the acceptance speeches last night was just so thrilling. And I cried almost the entire way through hers, because it's just, you can tell that it's coming entirely from her heart. Yeah. She doesn't need to have a teleprompter. She's just going to speak from the heart. And that's such an admirable quality, particularly for someone who's lived and thrived so effectively in a political environment. Now, she probably did have a teleprompter and all of those things, but you could just really tell that, it was really whoever was helping her in the writing of that speech knew how to help her express her heart. And it was really extraordinary. And I do believe that her intention and her desire, as well as her actions, will all meet up with one another, particularly when it comes to helping all kinds of people within our country who have not been given the opportunities that they equally deserve for way too long. And, it's not only in our African American communities and our Black communities, but it's people of color everywhere. And, even in our indigenous areas. I've got friends who are really working within the Navajo Nation right now. And, those folks don't have homes, and they are essentially living in a third world country within our own. So there's all kinds of, because of her background and because of all of the different aspects of life and different nationalities that are a part of her upbringing and what makes her such a powerful woman. I really feel like she's going to be, a very focused individual with authority, who is going to be able to tap into lots and lots of communities who their time has been long overdue to be equally cared for in our country.
Definitely, I totally agree with you. And I also spent time reading about her story as well, and I was very touched by her effort and what she believes in and how she fights to serve others as well. And also being, and I didn't see it coming during the convention, is they were all going for it to win the Democratic ticket. And once Joe Biden chose her, I was like, so who's Kamala Harris?
Right? Yep, right? Exactly. Who is she and where is she coming from? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, all that she did when she was in California was fight for lots of different kinds of people in our country. Again, I mean, it's because to her, it's all about justice, right? It's all about everyone being treated as equal human beings, period, regardless of any of those things, whether it's gender or the color of our skin or any of those things, our backgrounds, none of them make a difference to her. Exactly. Because she's had to fight her entire life to overcome some of those prejudices that unfortunately still exist in our country. Mm-hmm. And even though I feel like the things that President Trump brought up in all of us, right, in many of us, like brought to the surface things that, maybe have been under the surface for way too long. I'm grateful to him for that. I am. And I know that sounds strange to express gratitude to somebody that personally I feel like was from the very beginning the wrong man for the job. But I really am, because now we have an opportunity to truly demonstrate what democracy is all about. It's about treating everyone who comes to this country fairly and equitably, and making sure that they are each given the same types of opportunities that anyone of, my colored skin has worked for. Exactly. So it was a very happy day yesterday. I'm just going to be totally honest.
Yes. Well, I would like to, I'd like us to also take time to reflect on the past 4 years, and then we'll be able to speak about the president's speech and then what we hope for the future. But let's start in the past 4 years. You've been in the U.S. for a long time, and you've grown here. You know the country very well. For those who are listening, who are abroad, for example, who have never been in the U.S. and they're listening to us, some people might have questions to be like, how was he different than other administration? What would you say in terms of those people who are wondering about it?
Well, it's interesting because, while I have, been born and raised here my whole life, I also consider myself to be a citizen of the world. And my husband and I have traveled and lived in New Zealand, in Australia. We've spent a fair amount of time in Hawaii, even though that's still considered a U.S. part of our country. But I've traveled to Thailand, I've traveled to Canada, I've traveled to Mexico. I mean, that's kind of a long list, including many places in Europe. And the thing that I have to say had changed significantly for me as a traveler of the world is that when I was going to other places, wherever I was going, there was this ongoing tension about, oh my gosh, is this person going to represent and going to be aligned with our current administration, or is this person going to be opposed to it? And I'd never experienced that before in all the travels that I've done, except for these last 4 years, where there were many instances where it was difficult to even be comfortable admitting that I was a citizen of the United States, mostly because of the embarrassment of recognizing that we had a president who was willing to communicate in terms of lots of things, like not just his opinions of things, but he even terminated some of his own administration utilizing Twitter. And that's one of the biggest things that I think is hopefully going to change dramatically with the incoming administration, that communication with the country is really important, but communication over a social media platform like Twitter or any of the rest of them is not the expectation of the people of our country. If you're going to communicate with the people of our country, you're going to do it utilizing methods that are more appropriate, frankly. And certainly are televised or on the radio at a specific time, so that everyone has an opportunity to participate in that conversation. And the other thing that's going to really shift for me personally is that there were very, very few times that I would ever choose to tune in to hear what the president had to say, because I got so uncomfortable by the number of times that I would hear him speak and recognize that half of what he said, if not more than that, wasn't the truth. And it was as though we sort of became accustomed as a society to hearing someone in the highest office in our land continually spewing out things that had no basis in fact. And that continues, unfortunately, with the election, to continue to have this conspiracy theory out there that, the vote is rigged, particularly if he loses. It's just, it gets to the point where it's almost comical, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
I had also some friends. I remember there's just two things that happened this year that I've never anticipated it would happen. I remember I was with a couple of my friends. And there were one guy who wanted to date another woman in the group, and he went to her and asked her out, and then the girl were like, "Oh, you pro-Trump or not? If you are, don't get closer to me." I was like, "Wow, this is real." I mean, there were really people who were worried about the state of the country, and then yes, I felt it. I was like, "Wow, this is." If politics can literally affect relationship, this is very serious. And the other thing is also the result that I've seen, like people voting in Seattle and in Washington State. I was like, wow, our state really stood for something great, because the numbers just show that the people in Washington State really cared about what was going in the country, and also in the U.S. as in general, seeing the numbers and people voting, and this election is the highest turnout since the 1900s, over a century. So what would you say that according to you, why did a lot of people went to vote?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. And I have to say, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that was the primary message from the Democratic Party. from the very beginning. Every single one of the candidates, regardless whether they were running for a senatorial race or a gubernatorial race, it didn't matter. It was get out and vote. Because I think that if any of us really looked back at 4 years ago and recognized that, you know, I think there were a number of us, including myself. I mean, I voted, but at the same time, I just absolutely had myself convinced that there would not be enough people in our country who would dare vote for Donald Trump. It was so shocking to recognize that there would be that many people in our country that would choose to elect someone who had no qualifications, no real understanding of how our government worked, and was not actually a successful businessman. He wasn't. He declared bankruptcy multiple times, 6 times in his lifetime, right? And so that was the thing, was the difference was the messaging, the consistency of recognizing that everyone in our country is enabled to have a say. Like, use your votes, use your voice by using your vote, right? And so I think that there was just a lot, and I'm grateful for the consistency of that really important message. And I know that when I voted this year, and I put that envelope in one of the ballot boxes that I was able to track, so I knew it was going to be counted and all of those kinds of things, I was so grateful for all of the women and all of the people, frankly. But particularly in my case as a female, I was very grateful for all the women who came before me, who fought so hard in our country for our right to vote. So that's what I think helped a lot, was just encouraging people to get to the polls, use their voices, and appreciate their democratic ability to cast their vote, because it's really important.
Definitely. Let's talk about the president address, the president-elect. How did you? I listened to his speech. I was like, man, and he was speaking with so much love, so much heart, and the message was to unite the entire country and people to come together and work together. What was your reaction to it?
Well, when I could get through my tears. I do that pretty easily. I think I just, I get kind of, it's just so much gratitude. So much, like you said, he just exudes love. I loved his statement about giving it a chance, right? Like, really, it's because he's recognizing too at the same time that while 75 or 74 point whatever it's going to actually be when all the points are, when all the ballots are finally tallied, I'm going to say 75 million people, there were still 70 million people who didn't vote for him.
Yes.
And he's got to be able to address those individuals and to still be able to create a message of unity and belief in unity. And when you look into his history, the thing that is so fascinating about him is that despite all of the incredibly challenging things that have happened in his life, losing his daughter and his first wife in a terrible automobile accident that, could have left most people completely devastated. They would have never recovered from that. Well, he recovered from that. He met Jill. They were married. They had a daughter together. Then he lost his amazing son that, was just beloved by everyone that he encountered, Bo. And so to overcome all of those life-altering kinds of sadness, tragedies, and still come at his life from a place of total love and appreciation of everything that this country stands for, and his willingness at 77 years of age, right? I mean, he could have easily just slipped into retirement and said, thank you, politics. I loved you. It was great. We had a really good run. See ya, right? He could have easily have done that. But instead, because he had nothing better to do with his time, he decided to run for president of our country, right? I mean, we're so fortunate to have him. Exactly. We really are. We are so blessed to have a leader like him emerge at this time in our country's history because of his work and being a very, very articulate, bipartisan creator. He appreciates being able to work on both sides of Congress. He doesn't see our country as red and blue states. He literally sees our country as one America. And there couldn't be a more appropriate time for his type of message. So I'm relieved. I'm taking deep breaths. I'm feeling so optimistic about what our future is going to look like as a country. Finally. Finally. Yay.
Yes. A lot of people are happy. I remember I was actually doing some assignment when they proclaimed the President Biden as a president-elect. My sister ran to me and she was like, "Watch this video." And then I was watching. There were a CNN journalist was crying. And was saying that, you know, today he feels good about telling his son that being a good person matter, having a good character matter, because we've proved it that, you know, it matters to the country, and being that good person really matter. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And as we look into the future, what is one thing you see in this future as we get into 2021 and beyond with our new president? What do you hope to see?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have a crystal ball. Wouldn't that just be amazing, right? But what I see is I see a return to compassion, a return to a uniform message. Right. I mean, the ability to handle the pandemic and get it over, right? Like control what is going on around it. But when you've got a president who doesn't wear a mask and doesn't help encourage people to do the same, and does sometimes, but then doesn't most of the time, right? Like there's no consistency in that message. That's the thing that I'm most looking forward to as a citizen of this country, as a female leader, as someone who loves all cultures and wants to create unlimited opportunity for any person, right? We're all human. That's the thing that binds us all together, right? And he has the ability to create an environment within our government to make that possible again, because his message will be consistent. It will not alter day to day. It will not be based on his very volatile emotions. It won't be any of those things. He has a very steady hand. He has a calm demeanor. He will bring that kind of calm to all of us who have been so without that. I mean, every time they turn on the news, at least, right? And so it's that ability to reach into our hearts again and recognize that he has lived through a lot of loss in his own life. So one of the things that I was really wanting to just say to your listeners and to the people that have joined us today is, personally, I just want to send you all love. If you've lost someone to COVID, or if you know of someone who has been lost as a result of COVID, I'm so sorry. I feel for you. I do. And it didn't have to be that way. And I think that was the increased frustration in our country, was that once we recognized that this president knew about the severity of this particular epidemic in advance and did nothing about it, it's possible that a lot of lives could have been saved. But we'll never know that for sure. All we'll know is that we have the ability as a human race to embrace one another and help people get over the hurt and the pain that they have experienced over the last 4 years. So the future, to me, in the next 4 or the next 8 or the next 12, is that the pendulum that swung all the way in a direction that we will never let happen again. We will never let that type of person run our country again. We won't. There'll be too many things that this president, this incoming president, will put into place to ensure that the people who are able to run for president of our country again in the future, there'll be a whole bunch more criteria. Like passing a psychological profile test.
Oh yes, definitely.
Any psychologist simultaneously, right? I mean, you'd have to pass that with flying colors to start out with. That'd be the first thing. And then the second thing would be to make sure that they understand how all of the branches of government work together and what the expectation is for working together in harmony with one another. Not giving in all the time, or I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, there's compromise in everything, right? There's compromise in everything. And some things are not going to necessarily be to the betterment of everyone, right? I always look back to the principles that Rotary utilizes whenever they are making a decision, and it's called the four-way test. So if you're ever curious about what it really means to have depth of character, I would just encourage you to look up what the four-way test is for Rotary. Rotary International is one of the largest service organizations in the world, and I love it. It's a humongous passion of mine. And one of those four principles is that it must be beneficial to all concerned. Must be. And that's what I see as the next multiple years, hopefully, many four-year terms to follow. That will be the thing that guides the decisions of what happens next. Is it must be beneficial to all concerned, not just the wealthy, everyone.
Everyone.
Not just the white men, sorry, but to everyone, right? That is what, if that one principle runs our country, it's going to be a much different place than it has been in the last 4 years. Please, dear God.
Definitely. I remember one of my friends, as I was chatting with him, he mentioned something. He said one of the things that was very important to him was having empathy at the head of government, because that's something that we've missed for the past 4 years. The messaging was more hurting and was dividing people than hearing a message of union and empathy, especially what happened at the border for a lot of people. I watched some Netflix documentary. I was shocked to realize what was going on, and I was like, my God. And I think that also motivated me to really tell my friend, you know, where are you landing in this issue? What are you seeing? What are your views about this? Because before that, I never really invest myself into politics and talk about it. But this, I think, was a wake-up call for me. I was like, wow, there is something that must be done, and what can we do? And I remember even having nights and speaking with friends and understanding how they were feeling at work, and people were sharing, across. I realized that wow, it was a different experience for people. And looking forward, one of the things that I'm just happy is that at least we would have a president that will tell us the truth, the way things are. And that is one thing about Biden that I have confidence in his character and his ability to own it and share it the way it is, and really bring people together, work together. I remember the wife of John McCain who came up and it was supporting Biden, and was like the reason why it was supporting him because he has this ability to go across the aisle, to work together with people despite of their affiliation, whether Republican or Democrat. He had that care for the country, and for me, I was like, wow, this is a statement to this man, and I'm willing to support him, and I'm glad the country did, and I'm very happy, looking forward for the children and everyone, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to see him being the president and start his work as well. I was actually thinking January I might go to DC to just witness.
I know, I'm feeling the exact same way. In fact, our 36th wedding anniversary is the 21st of the month, and so I'm there with you. I would love to be in that audience observing him taking that oath, because he's worked a lot of years in his life to become president of our country. And when Hillary Clinton was the one who stepped in, in 2016, he backed out because he really felt like that was going to be an appropriate time to have a female president in our country. And and he also made a run at it in 2008. So it's a pretty interesting process that he's gone through. So not 2008, sorry, 1992 was the last time. But anyway, he's an extraordinary human being, and empathy is it just happens with people who go through as much tragedy as he has in his life, and yet continues to move forward. And he would tell you, I think, based on his speech last night, that has everything to do with his faith. That, without that, he would not have been able to overcome the things that, would have brought a lot of people to their knees. And instead, because of the power and the strength of his faith, he's been able to recognize that, that this was I'm pretty sure he would agree that this was the will of God, that this was his path. This was where he was supposed to be, and he was called to be here. And again, I'm so grateful.
Same here.
Yep.
Beth, as we're reaching the end of our podcast, I'd like to give you an opportunity to share with our listener a little bit about the message, the takeaway for today, and how they can also get in touch with you. I think that's also an important point as well. So you have the floor.
Oh, you are so sweet. Well, thank you so much, Gloria. I always appreciate our conversations. I always learn something extraordinary, and I always feel so blessed to call you friend. So thank you. I would say that the ultimate message here is hope. That we have a hope now for a future that we can be proud of, that our children can be proud of. And as they watch and we watch what unfolds in the next few years, and just getting this ship righted, that I would say that the takeaway really is hope for our future. And some of us haven't experienced that for a while. But it feels incredibly optimistic to me, and I'd love to speak with any of you out there that might have questions or want to just be in touch to share your stories and share the love of what we're all experiencing today. And the easiest way to do that is either via email or my cell phone. My email is Beth@masterthenewway.com. That's all lowercase, Beth@masterthenewway.com, or my cell phone, which is 206. We're in Washington together, 459-2854. And I would welcome your input and hearing your stories. So thank you so much, Glory.
You're welcome, Beth. Thank you, everybody who've been here and been listening. As you guys can see, we were with Beth today, and she shares a lot of good message with us today. And we will continue to inspire, enlighten, and empower every single listener in this podcast. Thank you for being here with us. We look forward to speaking with you soon.